Hello, creators. How are you guys? It's great to hang out with you again for another Video Creators Podcast episode, a special one that I am very excited to do with you guys because I am going to introduce you to some friends of mine that I've been hanging out with here over the past 8 weeks through a process we call Video Labs. And it's been really fun to get to know each of these 7 creators and not only hear and learn more about what they're doing on YouTube and how they're growing their channel and growing their audience and reaching more people, growing their businesses, changing more lives, all that fun stuff. But also, my favorite part is seeing how they come into a process like this, understanding a few things about YouTube. They got some momentum, they got some traction, but then how by the end of this 8-week process, they are equipped to understand not only the things that we talk about in the class and in the course, but also the things that they didn't even know they didn't know and never even knew how to address. But because we work so hard in giving them a framework with how to approach these problems and how to develop a custom strategy on their channel, today, we are going to put them to the test. We are live streaming this episode, and I am very excited to hear how they start answering questions that they've never thought of before from actual real creators and see how they handle these, and especially the ones that really don't relate to their channels and are maybe outside the scope of anything they've ever thought of before. So this is going to be really fun, very exciting, but we're not going to jump in right there quite yet. First, I want to give each of them a chance to introduce themselves and give them a chance to share a little bit about their channels, what they're doing on YouTube, and share one of their best tips. And I asked each of them, what is one thing that you think creators need to know or need to hear or need to understand or need to be challenged with or whatever in order to further grow their views, get more views on their channel, grow their subscribership, and make more money, grow a business around their channel. And so each of them have come prepared to share something with you here today. So we're excited to dive through these, but those of you who are here in the live stream, make sure you ask your questions in the chat and we will be doing our best to get to as many of them. I'm going to let these guys and women, these people are going to be answering them. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite episodes that we do. So I'm really looking forward to this. Let's start with those. Who wants to go first? Anyone want to go? I did, because everyone's like usually like hearts beating, pounding. Like, I'll just call on you. All right, we'll let Brad go first. All right. Let's start with Brad. Brad, why don't you tell us about your channel and what you're doing on YouTube?
Yes. So what's going on, everybody? I'm no stranger to the live streaming, so that's why I was like, I'll just go first. Whatever, it's fine. My name is Brad. My channel is called Own the Chaos, and the reason why it's called Own the Chaos because the stock market is crazy and chaotic, and so I made it my mission to help everybody who's willing to learn about the stock market own it, and whatever it is that you're looking to do, whether it's just financial freedom or starting to build some wealth for retirement, I want to be able to help you do that on my channel. So, coming through all this, and one of the biggest things that I've learned throughout the entire experience of just trying to learn how to improve my channel was just really getting to the point. When I go back to like some of my older stuff, even just like a few months ago, it took me forever to actually get to what my videos were actually about. And I would see, looking on my analytics about how everything, all my view duration or the views would just drop off significantly, 40-50% within that first 60 seconds. And it never really clicked to me why that was happening. And so, I think that just really understanding that, and then also ending the video within a reasonable amount of time as well. So like I would have this steep drop off in the first 60 seconds, and then I would have another really steep drop off about a minute or two before the video ended. And so really kind of like getting started right away and ending it right away was one of the biggest key factors that changed my channel. And over the last, I would say 8 to 12 weeks, it's been just really incredible to see how that's transformed. I've seen a significant increase in view duration, and that's really translated to having my videos and content pushed further out into the YouTube space. So it's been a really big, huge game changer for me.
That's great, Brad. When you were first evaluating that, what were the things that you were looking at and you would advise that someone else who maybe like, oh, I never even thought about like average view durations and retention and those things for my channel. What metrics and places would you encourage another creator to look at to evaluate that type of thing?
So really just going into your analytics and then going into engagement and just really kind of diving deep into that and going through each individual video, because usually what happens is that you'll notice a pattern, and that's what I noticed was like going into each individual video, into my analytics, right into engagement, and seeing just the retention. It would probably hover around 45 to 50%, which that was my average videos, and I've been on YouTube for 3 years, and so that was kind of eye-opening for me, just to kind of like be like, oh my gosh, how did I not really kind of paid attention to this as much as I should have? And so looking at that really kind of made me realize I'm just not getting to the point fast enough. And so started to change some things, and just really, instead of just going through a whole spiel about my channel and what it's about, just diving in the content, because they can go other places to find out exactly what the channel is about. And that's really just changed everything.
Yeah. So you guys, it's very, who are listening to this, is very common for creators to just kind of like make content and think that the content should just perform based on nothing other than the merit of the content, which sometimes happens, but it's way more predictable to actually look at the data and see how are people actually responding to this? How are people interacting with, how people are engaging with this? And if it's not super high, then you're probably not getting the traction you want on the video in the first place. So it's important to look at that data and do what Brad's suggesting, and like, let's make data driven decisions rather than like, oh, I just feel like this should be doing better because everyone comments and says, I don't understand why you don't have more subscribers, you should have more subs, right? And you're
Yeah.
kind of, and Brad, what you're saying is like, well, if the content was better, I would have more subs. So
Yeah,
looking at the
100%.
yeah. Kristen works with you on your team and on your channel. So, oh, and by the way, if you guys want to see any of these creators' channels, they're all linked up in the show notes of this podcast episode, or if you're in the live stream, they're down in the description there. You guys can go check out their channels, follow along, see what they're doing, follow their growth from this point forward. It's going to be exciting to watch. But Kristen, what tip do you have for creators who are also trying to grow for their channel?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Christian. So I'm with Own the Chaos, and I'm Brad's partner in crime. So I'm kind of the channel manager for him. But we spend a lot of time in the analytics, and I'll sort of piggyback. My tip piggybacks off that, which is try to establish 2 to 3 KPIs. So if you don't know what they are, they're key performance indicators. So how you gauge success. There's so many metrics, and it can get so overwhelming, and you can go down that rabbit hole. So for us, it's really important and to remind ourselves as we see other metrics go in a different way to not deviate from what they are. So those 2 to 3 are really important to us, and we keep coming back to that when we're looking at our analytics.
When you talk about key performance indicators, which is really, really smart, what are the top ones that you would recommend a creator be like, hey, I don't even know where to start? Like, what should I evaluate first of all when I'm looking at my channel? If their goal is to just get more views and more subscribers, what would be the ones that you would recommend?
Yeah. So, I mean, through your course, through your 30 days to better YouTube, I mean, a lot of what it talks about is the click-through rate, right? And so for us and Creators Insider, like anything you look at on YouTube, they talk about click-through rate. You can't get views or view duration, you can't get any of that if they're not clicking on your content. So for us, I mean, R3, and we're in a little bit of a different spot, but click-through rate, audience retention, Brad mentioned. The third one for us is a little bit different because we feel good about where our subscriber growth is. We focus on our membership growth. So right now we're really all about our base right now. How do we keep them engaged? Because we see a lot of creators who just try to pile people in, but once they get in, what are they getting? So we've seen great growth with our memberships, and that's really what we're spending a lot of time on, engaging them.
And when you say memberships, you're talking about YouTube memberships on
exactly.
like they're on the channel, not like a membership website or anything.
Yeah. So channel memberships.
So you guys are right now, your KPIs, your key performance indicators revolve around, if we do this, how does it move the needle on the conversion into channel memberships? And if we do this, well, how does that? And you're tracking those things through your analytics, and are using anything else other than just straight YouTube analytics to measure and track those things?
I mean, we use vidIQ to just make sure that the content's right, but to track those, no, I mean, I think YouTube has everything you need, to be quite honest. So yeah, we're using that. Click through and audience retention kind of ensures that we keep things stable. And then the membership, we just track membership growth from week to week. And when we meet, we see where we have 2 levels of channel memberships. We sort of see how that's growing. And then we talk about how we can continue to get them to show up to whether it's live streams or whatever we're doing for the members specifically.
Yeah, we have something similar to that. It's we use a Google spreadsheet, and we just type in all the numbers of like channel growth this month and sales in this course, and then conversions through those emails. And we have like the entire customer journey mapped out in several different ways, but in this case, it's that we measure the data through a spreadsheet, and then we can see week to week and month to month how the different things we do increase conversions, lower conversions, and how surprisingly for us, the growth of the channel has very little impact on revenue, which is interesting. But I think that means, that's a whole nother conversation, not to get sidetracked. But the point is that Chris is making is that like track the data and don't just make haphazard random guesses and choices. And I mean, sometimes that works, but it's kind of like hit or miss. It's like, if it works, it's accidental and you don't really know how to reproduce it, as opposed to when you're tracking it, paying attention. That's really, really important. And fortunately, in Video Labs, we spend 2 weeks talking about analytics and how to read that data and how to make better decisions and what you should track, both the spot opportunities for growth in your videos as well as growth on your channel. So if you're like scratching your head right now thinking, I don't know where to start, we do cover that in videos for 2 weeks. If you guys are in the chat, make sure you're asking your questions. We are going to be getting to them here in a little bit. And so we've got a few already, but would love to take more of your questions. So keep asking them as you guys think of them as we go through this stuff. We want to help you move forward through your roadblocks that you're facing on your channel. So make sure you ask those there. Let's go to Jason. Hey, Jason, another fellow Cincinnatian. We got to represent Cincinnati here together.
That's right. That's right. So I'm Jason Guyman. I do pressure washing. I help pressure washers to start and grow successful businesses. That is my goal, and that's how I help people. And so the one thing we was talking about KPIs and stuff like that, and the one is our click-through rate. Well, if we don't have a good thumbnail, and this was the one that, thumbnails are one of the things that you can spend hours and hours and hours of video in and editing. And if you spend 15 minutes on your thumbnail, you're probably not going to get nobody to watch it. And so with Video Labs, we went through and we learned how to make sure that so I had some click-through rates that were really low, like 1%, 1.2, when my average is around 4 or 5. And so I was able to go through, change it. We learned how to do some testing to see which ones work. I use TubeBuddy because I'm lazy and it's a lot easier for me. So, but it's a way to say, and then even though some of the thumbnails that I did work on that, if I thought was better, it didn't always perform better. So, it's kind of to make sure that data is still going forward to make sure that's the best for your channel.
So what are the main things that you've done with your thumbnails that you feel like have been the most effective in increasing that click-through rate?
Putting this big ugly mug up first, and because we did do some data to see, whether we put our face in there, whether we didn't, and when we put our mug in there, it does help the click-through rate go up tremendously. That was what I found on my channel.
Yeah, in Video Labs, we talk about, again, coming out of this principle of don't just make guesses, make educated choices based on the data. And we talked about using groups to form like all your thumbnails with faces in this one versus all your thumbnails without faces in that group, and then analyze the two groups side by side. And you can, in your case, Jason, see that whenever I use my face in these thumbnails, I mean, that is a clickable face, if I'm not going to lie, right? So people just click on that face and they're like, I don't care what's going on. I just want to see what that guy's all about, right? So again, coming back to how do we make data-driven choices? So that's great. Thank you. Let's go to Dan. I feel like I'm on like a radio show. Like next up, we have Mr. Dan, it's like 4 a.m. for him over in Australia. This is like one of the most dedicated guys. Every week he's up way earlier than I ever want to be. and actually thinking and participating, which I don't think I could do at 4 a.m. So Dan, tell us about you and your channel.
So my channel is called Fruit Mentor. It's all about helping people grow and enjoy the most delicious fruit. It's mostly focused on citrus fruits. It has a lot of video about grafting at home, and also some videos about how to accidentally avoid the spread of citrus disease. And in the future, I'll have more videos on grafting, growing fruits in the yard, and also videos about fruits. But for my tip, I'd like to second what Jason said about using TubeBuddy to improve the thumbnails. That's actually something that helped me to get one of my videos to over 10 million views. I was doing a lot of experiments with the thumbnails for my videos on TubeBuddy, and on this one video, I did 7 experiments, and on my final experiment on that video, I tried something. I didn't really even expect it to work. So I tried it on a less popular video first. And after that final experiment, it blew up and got me into the millions of views. But after the video labs, the thing that I'm doing for my future videos, it's different, is rather than going back and fixing bad thumbnails after the fact, I'm actually planning ahead of time. I've got a 2-year plan for my channel with 48 videos, let's see, that's 2 per month. And I've already generated 174 different thumbnail images. And also, I also learned that the thumbnail and the title go together. You want to not only have a good thumbnail, but a good title. So in addition to the 174 thumbnail images, I've generated 287 ideas for titles. And I'm working really hard to make sure that the thumbnails and titles that I have are going to get the viewer to click. And that's before I even shoot the video.
That is so important that it's like, before even someone clicks play, we need to figure out what the title and thumbnail is going to be, because then the opening seconds of the content need to match exactly the expectation that the title and thumbnail set. So yeah, Dan, so many people, including myself, sometimes when I'm just quick and lazy, just like shoot the video, and while it's uploading, I'm like, and then try to figure out title and thumbnail. Have you discovered any principles on your channel that you feel help you, that are like, hey, if I do a title this way, it performs better than that way, or any lessons you've learned about how to craft better titles and thumbnails for your channel that would be helpful for others?
I guess in the past, I used more of an SEO approach, and that worked. But I think what I've noticed is there's so much new competition that it doesn't seem like a viable solution going forward. So I think I just focus on what is going to make the viewer curious. Like an example, a new thumbnail I came up with is what happens if you graft oranges to a lemon tree. And I have not only a thing, half of the image shows a plant growing, which that's worked for me in the past, but I did something new. I shot a picture of my dog on the right-hand side eating oranges. So I think it's going to make the viewer the title and thumbnail together are going to make the viewer very curious. And not only that, when I shoot the video, I'm going to have my dog with me, and I'm going to have the audience wondering why is this dog in the shot. Until I get to that part of the story, they're going to get it. They're going to be so curious and interested to see the rest of the video.
So it sounds like what you're saying is it's more important to create intrigue that prompts someone to want to click and watch than it is to make sure you get all your keywords into the right
That's right.
place.
Make them curious.
Those are very, what's the right word? Like, that's very different than what a lot of creators do. When you started making that shift, how did you feel about that? You're like, you're telling me not to use my keywords as much?
So out of these 287 title ideas I came up with, I see myself going for the keywords because that worked it worked in the past. And then I realized that I'm going to have a lot better click-through rate going for the intrigue.
And do you feel like you resist that? Because that's the normal response people have. Are like, does that really work? Like they got to be really convinced that not dropping keywords, but placing a bigger emphasis on intrigue and tension in the brain with the title and thumbnail makes a bigger difference than actually getting their correct word. Otherwise, like, how would YouTube even know what this video is about? Like,
I'm definitely resisting the urge to use the keywords.
Yeah. It's hard. But good for you for doing the hard thing and not just the easy thing. And the results are definitely going to pay off. So that's awesome. Good to have you, Dan.
Thank you.
Let's go to Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, Tim.
Hi. Tell us
Hi.
about your channel, what you do on YouTube.
Yeah, so my name is Melissa K. Norris, and my channel is Simple Modern Homesteading for a Healthy and Self-Sufficient Life. So growing your own food, doing old-fashioned canning and sourdough and any of those homesteaders type traditional skill sets we go over. And I was having pretty good growth on my channel, especially since COVID hit. Big surprise there. But what I found really interesting is a couple of the videos that I had kind of went mini viral for me. I thought that it was because I was doing more of a informal style where I was just walking with the camera, a vlog type instead of more like a traditional how-to video. But what I really discovered going through video labs and looking at it is it wasn't that it was just the style of me walking. It was actually because in those videos, I was doing a lot of storytelling. So there was definitely those how-to elements that are important, but you can find, like you said, with keywords, you can find a ton of how-to videos on the topics of growing your garden. But when you create the story element in there, it takes it to a whole new level because we all want a story. And it builds off of what Dan was saying with also creating that curiosity and that intrigue and having that tension within a really well told story. And then you're marrying that with very solid, good content on teaching people how to do these things. So for me, I did a big video batch yesterday, actually, where I batched 5 videos. And so it's that intentionally planning that into the how-to has been so important and such a big element that I can't believe I missed it before because it was right there in the analytics, but I didn't key in that it was that storytelling, not just the style of the video and the way that it was filmed.
If you were going to help someone improve their storytelling game, what would you say to them? What would be some like, hey, if you're just now thinking about this, at least just try this thing first of all?
Yeah, I know a lot of us think of the hook, like the point of the video or why somebody should watch it. But to think about that in a story format. So you're going to have like the main hook or the main thing that you're going to be teaching, but in there create like these little mini stories that go together with the full story. So for example, I did a video yesterday that was how to keep the weeds down in your garden because nobody likes the weeding part of a garden. And so there's 3 things that you can do, but instead I created each of those little 3 things. We told like a little story and highlighted each of them that went into the overall one. So we created, like, we show this one, build this problem, kind of start to get a solution, but then you're faced with this problem. So creating that tension and carrying the person all the way through, and creating kind of like those little, basically we're opening a hook and then we're giving them a solution and then closing it, but then we're immediately opening another hook so that it takes them all the way through the video to the end.
That is way easier said than done, right? Like a lot of people are like, okay, no problem. And then they're like, oh shoot, like how do I actually do this? Do you have any tips or ideas for people who are like, how do I find what that hook is or what that tension should be in the beginning? And how, like, so sometimes people hear this and they're like, well, I'm not going to go into drama queen mode. Like I'm not going to make it bigger than it really is. Is that what you're talking about? Or so one, how they find it, and then 2, how big does this? Are we talking drama here, or are we talking something else?
No, it doesn't have to be drama. Like I'm not going to be jumping up and down screaming out in the video or creating like a false narrative. But I think it's just pulling that out, and it can even just be a sentence or two. So for example, I was just pulling out, we don't want to spend hours on end weeding, but you're going to have to do some weeding. So you're going to have to do some by hand. Like, I'm just breaking it to you. You got to do some by hand, but you don't have to do all of it by hand. And so then we move to the next, that's kind of creates the next intrigue. Well, really, what parts do I not have to do by hand? And so then I showed like the small weeds. So when your weeds are small, you can use a hoe. It's a lot faster and you can do it really quick like this. But if you've neglected your garden and your weeds are bigger than this size, this is not going to work. And you're going to have to use a different method. And here's why. And then we just moved into it. So it's just kind of like these little things, but where in the past I would have been like, here's 3 things that you can do to keep your weeds down. 1, 2, 3, and never kind of playing up any of the tension or breaking it or taking them from the first tip into the second tip, with kind of building up that problem. Like, you have a problem. These weeds are too big. You cannot use this method. You waited too long. Are they going to overtake your garden, or is there an easier way to do this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good, guys. Like, I hope you're hearing this stuff and being like, okay, that works for Melissa, but that would never work for my channel. That's usually what people say. How many of you guys, just curious, raise your hand visually if you're like, we started talking about the story stuff and you're like, I get it, that works for other people, but not for mine. Okay, so everyone except for Nick and Dan. We're like, I don't know. So where are you at, Melissa, right now? It sounds like you're trying it and you're seeing that it does work, and now you're like, oh, this is how, or where are you at with it right now?
Yeah, I'm really seeing that it works. I didn't think it worked because I was primarily doing how to, like how to can strawberry jam without pectin. I'm like, where's there a storyline in that? I mean, it's pretty simple. You chop up your berries, you add your sugar, you add an apple, you heat it to this degree, and then you can it. But I'm
Yeah.
really finding that there's lots of opportunities to turn tutorials even into more of a story format. And so it is harder. I have to put more thought into it before I shoot so that I can make sure that I'm capturing those elements and not just going straight into teaching mode, that I'm really highlighting them. But it is doable. And I'm seeing a big difference in the amount of people who watch the full video and then who go on to watch more videos and subscribers as well. So it's really having a large impact, much more than I thought it would, I have to be honest.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. I love it. I love hearing that when you're like, oh, it's working. So that's great.
Yeah.
Tetsu, tell us about your channel and what you're doing on YouTube with your lovely kids. And well, I won't spoil it. Sorry, go ahead.
You can talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Tetsu Young, and I have 4 kids. Still miles behind Tim, but maybe I'll catch up. So I have 4 kids, and I'm raising them in 5 languages. So that's pretty much what my channel is about. I know that globalization is an irreversible trend. And I think one great way to unlock the world's opportunities for my kids is to teach them languages. So I've been doing this ever since, but before they were born. And myself, I was raised in multiple languages. So I know a lot about raising multilingual children. And I thought that was what I could, spread the gospel, so to speak. But my tip is right along the same lines of Melissa. I'm glad we're lumping each other together with the thumbnail guys and the story guys. And I have a different take on this because I also started with the mindset of how to raise multilingual children. And this how to really trapped me within all the concepts and the, these big, information, like these theories about raising multilingual children. So there's not a lot of big topics, and I felt trapped. I'm talking about this big concept with big words, and I realized that's really not what my audience wanted. These are normal, everyday people who want to teach their kids to learn a second language, and then they're hitting lots of obstacles, and that's what I'm hitting every day. These little obstacles every day, raising my kids in different languages, and I've been finding stories. In every single obstacle. Every single obstacle can be built into a story. So suddenly with just a few topics, and I find myself trying to twist these artificially, now suddenly I have an infinite number of little stories that I can build. And that's really the power of stories. And of course, a great what I say, side effect of that is the retention. People get, can relate to that. People hit the same obstacles and you talk about the same things, and suddenly you build a community upon that. So that's my tip based on the stories. Tim, you're on mute.
There we go. I like how you're saying it's like, and then I did this, and then suddenly I have this big community. You actually are growing pretty rapidly, Tetsu, which has been fun to watch from the beginning of your journey here.
Thanks to the video creators. Ever since I've been implementing all these technical stuff, making my channel subscribable. I think that's the word I really like about my channel, because I've been months on end with 1 subscriber every 2-3 days to suddenly just 2-3 subscriber a day, and building. And these past 2 to 3 months, I got I went from 200s to now 800s. That's the absolute numbers are small, but if you think in
the percentages,
it's life changing. I hope I could keep this up.
Let's keep that type of exponential growth going. That'd be awesome. Yeah,
definitely.
So I think it's another good example, guys, of when you hear and I know the storytelling thing sounds so elusive. We try to make it not elusive. In Video Labs, we spent 3 weeks working on how do we craft content that's engaging, that hooks and holds people's attention, that gets them to the end and prompts them to take action and click and watch another video and engage with the brand, with the channel in some way. So we try to make it really tangible. But it is, I'm really curious if you guys agree with this or not. I feel like it is a skill. It's like a muscle you have to exercise and keep using over and over again. It's not like this moment where you're like, oh, even after we give you hopefully practical tools and Video Labs to show you, here's how you craft a story, do this, do that, and do it in this order, and here's how you craft it all together. It's still not a perfect, got it, every video going forward is perfect now. Did you guys agree with that? Is it like, just kind of raise your hand if you're like, yes, it's a skill you learn over time.
Absolutely. I try to find a little process in there, and I find that the best starting point is that problem, and that's pretty much aligned with everything you talk about. Also, if you start with that problem, then you sort of build the chronological order of things around that. But that's the core. You need that obstacle for your character to overcome.
Well, you're doing a good job with the Tetsu. Can't wait to see how you continue to grow and with your channel. Let's go one more person. We got Nick here, and then we got a whole bunch of good questions we're going to dive into that you guys have been submitting in the chat. So Nick, tell us about your channel, about you, what you're doing on YouTube, and your tip for creators.
Thanks for having me, Tim, and welcome to everyone who's here. Like a lot of you who are probably on the live stream, I started making content because I really thought I had something to say, and it was just a love of wanting to do this process and to communicate. And I kept creating videos week after week and posting these videos up, and I just wasn't seeing any growth at all beyond kind of this core group of people who found me and liked me. My numbers even today are very low. And it wasn't until really I took 30 days and started to understand a little bit more about my audience and what I could actually deliver to them in terms of value. So initially I was making videos that I liked, and that's great for me, but if I want to have any type of growth, if I want to grow my channel and to help people, what I really needed to do was to define kind of the value that I'm giving to them. And if you're not part of 30 days, or maybe you've never heard the term value proposition, it's something to write down and really look into, because it is the value that you're providing in every video to your audience. And it's almost like the guiding light for what it is that I need to do. And my value proposition, my channel, ultimately I ended up with stop feeling powerless about getting older and learn to embrace your age. And it took me 4 months, 12 or 13 different versions of that statement to get there. I would write it, I would look at it, I would think I was done, I would come back to it a week later, and I'd be like, I'm not done. And it seems like one of these things that you're not making a video. Why are you doing this? What is the value here? You should be making videos. Well, I made the videos without the value proposition and they didn't work. And now that I'm making the videos with the value proposition, things are starting to change. And once I kind of, what goes hand in hand, Tim, with the value proposition for me is the target audience. So it was like, okay, what do I have to say and who am I saying it to? And once I really defined that and got really specific with my target audience and nailed that value proposition, it kind of cascades out into everything now. So we talk about thumbnails. Does it work with my value proposition? Does my audience care about it? Titles, I can evaluate my titles on my value proposition and on my audience, as well as the story that I'm going to tell. All of these things kind of built on this idea. And now when I tell a story like Tetsu and Melissa were talking about, I can actually now say, okay, well, is that story going to be interesting to my audience? Does it work with my value proposition? I'm now able to kind of have a plan, and I feel much more aligned with what I'm doing and kind of making sure that the content that I'm making is targeted towards an audience. And hopefully people will see that, respond to it, and come back to the videos over and over again, watch them longer and subscribe.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's really important for people to understand, one, is this for me? And two, do I care? It's really important for the brand to make sense. And I think there's a question we're going to jump into here in a second that this might be relevant to, but those things, Nick, are very difficult things to figure out. It's not uncommon for even somewhat successful channels to go around and round and round in circles in terms of who is it that I'm going after? Why should they care? Those types of things. Do you have any advice in like that, like the process that someone should take to start discovering what those things are?
Well, yeah, I do have some advice. Get started. The first thing is to do some web research or take 30 days, which was extremely helpful, as was Video Labs.
And that's the course, 30 Days to a Better YouTube Channel, for people who aren't familiar with that.
Yeah, and a fabulous course, gives some structure around the whole thing. Part of this is to get started by doing the hard work of understanding what that value proposition is, and then really thinking about, why is someone going to watch your video? I mean, it's one thing that you got a nifty new camera and you can edit and you can do certain things, but YouTube, the number of videos that are posted every hour is just freaking mind-blowing. And it's almost like an exercise in reduction. You can't be Casey Neistat. That's not going to happen, chances are. But you can really understand what it is that you love about what you're creating and who do you want to help, and really identify that person and say, okay, this is really who I want to focus in on. And there's a couple of things that kind of came out of this that made a huge difference. One is brand, and that's a very complicated kind of thing, but it really helped me to define my brand. Once I understood my target audience and what I'm trying to say, that begins to help me kind of structure what I mean, in YouTube. The other thing that it really helped, which is really super practical for me, is it can be difficult to talk to the camera. But now when I get in front of the camera, I know exactly who I'm talking to. I have a 3-page document that outlines my target audience, who this person is, how old they are, where they went to school, what was their life like when they were growing up, are they married, are they not? I mean, it's their whole story. So when I write something, when I get in front of the camera, it's no longer, the dark eye of the lens looking back at me. It's like JP. I have this character, JP. I'm talking to JP. I mean, that changed things for me. And again, my channel's very early in its stages, but the last 4 or 5 videos that I've created using what I've learned, in 30 days in Video Labs, my watch time is up about 50%. I'm seeing numbers moving in the right direction. And more than that, I don't feel like I'm flailing. I feel like I have a plan, and it's very empowering to have this plan because I felt, you know, like before, like I didn't have a plan. And now I know I see a clear path to success. You're on mute.
I love it. That's exactly what we try to do in Video Labs and in 30 days as well, which is give you guys a step-by-step process to follow, like do this thing in this order. And at the end, you get a growing YouTube channel, a growing business. Like that's what we're trying to help you guys with. And so, yeah, otherwise people are just like, I'm going to try to do this thing and it's not working. And I'm trying to do that thing. It's not working. And I think you end up, let's jump into some questions here. And I want to start with this question because I think it represents what you're talking about exactly, Nick, which is this feeling of like, why the heck am I not growing? And what's so different about this other channel than mine, but they're growing really fast. And I think there's lots of things going on here because you guys, I don't want to put any words in your mouth. This is where you guys, I want to hear what you guys do with this. Okay. But I think it's a very common question. So Mr. and Mrs. Ralphie's ASMR asks, this should be very interesting, but here goes. We've been on YouTube now for almost 6 years, and we've been constantly watching newer creators come on board, pulling out and passing us in views. Meanwhile, we are doing all the same things that they're doing, eating. YouTube is always holding out views, etc. in our opinions. It would be awesome to know why some very specific channels always pull out and pass others. How many of you guys just you can relate to that here in the chat? Nick raised his hand, Tetsu. Okay, everyone except for Dan. He's got it. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
This was so huge, Tim, in the coursework, which was this idea that people talk about with analytics and keywords and, you know, and like, that's going to cause you to grow. And it's like, no, man, it's watch time. It's like people need to watch your content, and to watch your content, they need to be interested in it. It needs to be valuable to them. And I would say the channels that are passing you are providing value to a specific audience. And YouTube sees people watching those videos longer, and they're like, oh, we want to keep those people on the platform. We're going to raise that up. You know, there's value there.
Yeah. So you're saying they've more clearly identified and are pitching their brand to a specific audience, the ones who are growing, than maybe Mr. and Mrs. Ralphie's ASMR is doing. That's definitely one thing. What else comes to mind for you guys?
You know what's interesting, what stands out in that question is YouTube is always holding back our views, right? In our opinion. And you know, I've talked Brad off the ledge many a times before we saw the burst, but you know, it's that FOMO and comparing yourself. I think there's an underlying thing that needs to be addressed, which is YouTube has nothing against you. It's not out to get you. And really, you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other creators. You should be comparing yourself to yesterday, right? And to me, success or progress is, am I further today than I was yesterday or a week ago or a year ago? And you just can't get caught up looking at somebody else because we don't know all that goes into their secret sauce.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like to, tack onto that too, is that it's not just about, I mean, just because people who follow you think that you should have more subscribers, or because maybe even you think that you're interesting, it might not be that you're all that interesting. Or maybe it's your thumbnails. Like, really dive deep into your story. Is it something that's actually going to captivate somebody? Just because you're in the same space as somebody doesn't mean that you're providing content that is going to actually keep people watching. And so just kind of really evaluating and having that self-awareness of like, is what they're watching something that's really going to keep them on my channel, and why or why not, and trying to figure out the answer to that question.
That taps into a little bit what I was thinking, Brad, which is that they're saying they're doing all the same things that everyone else is doing, but came to mind for me, but maybe you're not being the same person. And that sounds a little bit weird. But what I mean by that is what you said, Brad, like maybe you're not sharing parts of your story. Like they have the primal branding elements that make it easier for someone to form an emotional connection with them and their brand. They understand what they're all about, why this matters, what's at stake if they don't get what they want, and like all these, not just the storytelling elements, but it's like the brand creates an emotional connection in a way that like, hey, yeah, we're both eating, but people like that creator more because of these things. So yeah, anything else come to mind for you guys?
So
Sure.
I don't think YouTube is holding them back. I think they
No.
haven't discovered the elements that they need to put into the video to make them break out. They need to
That's
keep
right.
experimenting, keep trying different things.
Yep.
I think that your passion matters. And for me personally, that's what, the value proposition did for me. It got me to my passion and what I cared about. And my hope is that will come through the lens. It will be in the videos. And if someone is doing the same thing as me, if I'm more passionate and I care about what I'm doing, hopefully the viewer will pick up on that and dig it.
Yeah.
I would add, sort of to what Tim was saying. It's really, it depends on who you are. You can say the same thing, do the same thing, but if you're not that person, you can't, always expect the same results. Like for me, my target audience are basically young parents, and mostly I'm thinking women. So if another creator's a woman saying the same things as I'm saying, it wouldn't have the same effect. I don't think, certain jokes that I make could be funny because it's me, but it could be offensive if it's another person, or the other way around. It really has to tailor it to your personality. So I would ask your audience, I guess, to see, get some hints about what's working, what's not working. Little survey maybe.
The chat, some people in the chat, the direction they're taking this question is, this is not meant to pick on anyone. I think it's just totally normal that the response is, well, find other places to promote your content, maybe on Facebook groups or in subreddits, or find places, like ask people to share your content. Knowing what you guys know now, having gone through 30 Days to Better YouTube channel and going through Video Labs, do you think like just finding more places to promote your content will move the needle? Melissa, you're shaking your head already. And so Dan, go ahead, Melissa, you go first. Why is that?
Yeah, no, because if the content isn't resonating, just getting more people to view it, you have to have content that a viewer is going to want to watch and go all the way through. So it's just like if you have something that's not resonating with the people who are already on YouTube, throwing more people at it is not going to make more people resonate with it. So it's not a traffic problem. There's plenty of traffic on YouTube. It's a retention problem and getting people in there, and something within the way that you are presenting and you're doing your video is not resonating with people the same way that other presenters are doing, even if it is on the same topic. And so it can be frustrating, but really it comes down to you digging in and looking at it and trying and testing things. And just because you test one thing and that doesn't work, you can't say, oh, well, I tried that and it didn't work. You have to constantly keep testing and then digging into the analytics and seeing what they show on that. And having that mindset too, like, well, I'm gonna figure this out. The world isn't out to get me. I'm gonna figure out a way to make my stuff better because that's what I can control, and using that data to make that decision on what's working and what's not.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
I think Melissa nailed it.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And that's the part that kind of sucks about this whole thing is it's hard work. There is hard work that needs to go into this, and there's some reflection where you have to look at stuff that you're proud of and call it ugly. Because I look at some of my earlier videos that I was really proud of, but when I put my viewer hat on, I'm like, well, why would anyone watch this? What value am I giving to them? It's like, I'm proud of it, but not anymore. It's kind of, there's a part of it where you just got to be hard on yourself, and not just ask your friends what they think, but ask people who don't know, or pay attention to how people are responding to it.
Yeah. Let's move on to another question. I think we could camp out on that one for a long time, but Original Script asks, I have worked on thumbnails, content, tags, and titles. However, I have not managed to increase the amount of views and subscribers. How can I improve? So what advice would you give to someone in that spot who's like, hey, titles, content, tags, thumbnails, not changing anything? What would you encourage them to consider?
Storytelling. We love storytelling, and storytelling is one of those things that I think it's very hard for a lot of us in this group. Even here, it was pretty hard for us, for me especially, was to get to figuring out the story side of things. And story, just because we can have perfect thumbnails, perfect all the stuff that goes along with it, we don't have a story to resonate with our viewers, it's not going to help us in the end. And it kind of goes back to the other one, you know, a lot of times, you know, maybe we need to try to figure out different content that might actually resonate with that. And it kind of goes even with the value proposition. What type of value are we giving to these people? Are we just throwing, you know, a how-to video up just so that we cover the how-to, or are we bringing the value proposition of this is what it can do to help change your life, so that way you can get to the next step?
Yeah.
Something that I did was I looked at top performing channels. You know, I really kind of looked at people who were getting this right, and I really looked at what they were doing in their thumbnails and how it connected to their titles. And that, seeing it over and over and over again, as much as I heard it, was something that I found super helpful.
I would say too, go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna ask, what did you notice that was like, if you just keep looking at them over and over and over again, at what point you're like, I have no idea what else to try here? Like, what were you looking for that prompted? Were you just trying it different every time, or?
No, I was looking at something that caught my attention and created some type of intrigue, but didn't give something away. And then I would kind of like, are they connecting that to the title? You know, if the goal is to get me into the video, it's like, what, you know, what you're doing on your channel, or, you know, what are the people who need thumbnails? And I would look at creators on the rise and kind of people who are new and doing this, and kind of, I still look at creators on the rise because they're doing things that are getting them views. It was just really helpful. Sometimes, this is not a plug for you, Tim, but a lot of us on this live stream, and when we're starting, we're in this world by ourselves, and we're trying to figure this stuff out by ourselves, and it's hard. So going to 30 days, taking the 30 days class gave me a starting place. And so I could then kind of use what I learned in 30 days and take that outside and look at what other people were doing. And I could begin to kind of connect it and go, okay, I see what's going on here. I see how successful people are being successful. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the story is really important. And, you know, they mentioned views and subscribers, which are two different things, because you got to get traffic, but then how do you get them to subscribe as well? The story of your analytics is also something that's really important. Is like understanding how to read what your analytics are telling you. And so let's say you get the views, but your audience retention is dropping off, and you just have this cliff like Brad talked about earlier. Well, they're never going to get to the end if you're trying to get them to click to another video to increase view duration or even subscribe. So that's important. And I'll also say, like, just to give something tangible, you know, if you consistently work on those thumbnails, but to get the traffic, you can use a tool such as, I mentioned vidIQ earlier, or TubeBuddy. If you're not yet known, maybe considering just thinking about SEO, or even going to a site such as Answer the Public, where it gives you questions that people are asking. What are the questions that people are asking? What can you answer, or what value can you give to get them there? And then once you get them there, read your analytics and see what the story is telling you in your analytics.
Yeah. Cool. Let's go on to, on that note, Don Domisum. Did I say that right? Tips on how to use storytelling and educational content. I think all of you guys here are educational creators. Nick, would you consider yourself educational, entertainment? Kind of a little bit of both. Yeah. So what advice do those of you guys have, which is pretty much all of you, on the educational side, about how do you tell a story that engages an audience?
So for me, I always kind of go from personal experiences, but then I also pull from, so for my own experience. So like, I have to deal with a lot of people on Robinhood. The stereotype with Robinhood traders is that they're all noobs and they don't know what they're doing. So lots of times I try to grab from that demographic and be like, did you just get screwed on this stock? Here's why you did, and here's how to fix that. And so that kind of like, oh yeah, I actually did have that problem. So how can you help me fix this problem? And so I think that definitely is a way that I do it. And I also kind of like make it fun. And sometimes I rag on some of the Robinhood people a little bit, but I think when you make it fun like that, they kind of resonate with you a little bit better, and it's not so serious and a ho-hum about it. So making it fun, and then kind of like drawing from, like, you know, if you're the person that's having this problem, or speaking from your own experiences, I think really kind of resonates with people the best. In my, you know, just as far as, you know, my channel is concerned anyway.
Yeah.
I'll say, when you have this mindset like I had at the beginning, where you say I am a how-to creator, and you think about, you start with the contents, then you get trapped in that, and I found myself really in that trap. It's for one thing, you don't have that many contents really when you think about just the overall topics. So what I really did was to really start with problems that you know, that I faced in real life with my kids, and how I used my concepts and the things I wanted to teach, and applied on those problems. So I start with the problem, then what's the concept that I want to teach here, and sort of go from that. That's the theme, and from that you can build your story, and that allows you to really talk to the problem really, you know, in a real sense, and not a conceptual way. I mean, if I see Brad talking about MPVs and you know, discount, you know, this or that, the big words will not connect with the people that you really want to connect with. So that's how I sort of go from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I would echo what Tetsu says there. I mean, you know, YouTube is a unique place to make a personal connection with your audience. And this whole storytelling idea that you have people talking about, it's exposing yourself to your audience in a way, and it makes them more willing to listen to what you have to say. Early on, you know, I was doing kind of how-to content around diet and exercise, and using a lot of you statements. Well, you should do this and you should do that. No one wants to be talked to that way. You know, they just don't. And when I started to be like, well, this is something that I'm doing, you know, and then put it in story form, things started to change.
Yeah. Let's wrap up with one question here that I think will hopefully be encouraging to other creators who are maybe feeling a little bit frustrated, a little bit like, why is this not working? I'm doing what everyone else is doing. And we've talked a little bit about that here. But Fanboy, that's their actual channel name. I'm not calling them a Fanboy. Fanboy ask, how long did it take you guys to feel like your channel was gaining momentum and subs growth started to accelerate? And can you pinpoint a moment? Was it a specific video when that happened? Or when you think it's going to happen? Yeah, or just how would you guys answer that question, and maybe encourage Fanboy and others?
For me, it was when I figured out how to make good thumbnails that would people would click.
I remember being in that little breakout session with you, Dan, during Video Labs, and we were pitching like, okay, here's my title and thumbnail from the next video. And we're giving feedback on it and things. And you had a good title and thumbnail, but if I remember correctly, maybe Melissa, maybe you were in that group too. I don't remember I don't remember who all was in that particular breakout group, but I think you walked away with a very different idea of it with the title and thumbnail.
Yeah, I did. I came up with something
of like having other people's input. Go ahead.
Yeah, I came up with something very, very different that would appeal to a larger number of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone else? When was that moment, or what does that moment look like? Go ahead, Tetsu.
Yeah. For me, the aha moment was when I was able to get my channel really into a subscribable format. And that's the 30 days really allowed me to do that. I thought I had my value proposition really clear. I thought I knew my audience, but the 30 days course really allowed me to hone it in and build the foundation for my channel. So I went from, you know, one sub every few days to a few subs every day. That's just big. My foundation is made. Now I just need to build the house on top of it, and that I can, you know, do with videos but the foundation, if it weren't there, I don't think I'd be here where I am right now.
No, it's absolutely true.
you know, I'm guessing I'm like a lot of the people on the live stream here, you know, with 160 subscribers and, you know, low average views. If I'm looking for an external YouTube based thing to keep me going, I don't have that right now. What keeps me going is the progress in feeling like I am making content for a specific audience based on what I've kind of learned and I think is valuable. And, you know, I have a plan, and that plan is enough right now for me to keep going. Because for a lot of us who are new to this, you're not going to see the subscriber growth that you fantasize about, you know, or the watch time. It's going to take some time.
Hey, let's give people some numbers. I'm going to give people some numbers. So
Do it.
Brad in December, when he was right around when he was going through his mini breakdown, he was at 10,000 subs. So it took him about 2.5 years to get to 10,000 subs. Since December, he's now increased that to 22K. So he's at 32K. So 2.5 years to 10, and now he's over 30 in, you know, what, 8 months. So there's some numbers for people, because I know everybody wants numbers.
What was the thing that that sparked the growth that really turned things around and started gaining momentum?
It was
Brad, you got that?
100%. It was 100% thumbnails. I mean, I wouldn't say 100%. I was 80% thumbnails. Let's put it that way, because I didn't actually start seeing even better like view duration and all that until I started to really pay attention to it. But I started to pay attention to it because I was getting more views, and then I was like, oh crap, how do I keep this going? And that's when I kind of like really started to get to know you a little bit more, Tim. But really, I was like, it was simplifying my thumbnails. I literally painted my kitchen wall black. Like, that's how dedicated I was. My whole kitchen's black and white now. And I take my pictures in front of this black wall, and then I have just plain white text that looks, you know, just kind of bold, nice contrast. That's something that's just going to pop out in front of it. So like when somebody sees it, they want to click on it. And that's how I like kind of started to improve upon my thumbnails. And you know, Christian's kind of been helping me with that game, you know, here and there now as well. But like, that's really what it got started. And then I kind of was like, well, crap, I don't want to lose this. So how do I expand upon that and get people engaged and create an actual community? And that's kind of like where things started coming into play with, you know, the Creed and everything else. Tim, I mean, I have people like, now it's a thing where everybody says hell yeah on my channel, because Steve Austin's one of my favorite wrestlers, and everybody's just bought into that. So every live stream now, everybody's just they gotta say it. They gotta say it.
Yeah.
It's just funny. And so
it's one of your rituals now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So
I think
fun.
Fanboy, when I look at the biggest channels on YouTube that have the most amount of subscribers, there usually isn't a gaining momentum point for them, where it's like, oh, now I feel like this is starting to accelerate. It's usually just one consistent video after another over time, slowly improving what they did from the video before and the 3 videos before that. And it's more of like a slow build. Now, some creators do pick up a lot of momentum rather quickly, and that's what we aim to try to do through the process of Video Labs, but not everyone does. So it's for many, it's just like slow over time. And honestly, if I was gonna pick which way I'd rather go, I would rather take the slow over time approach, because that feels way more sustainable than these people who have accidental success, have all these views, and now don't know how to actually sustain it, and then they end up losing it, or they feel like it's working, but they don't really know what's working. And then when it's not working, now they feel completely lost again. And except for now the stakes are higher because they made it their full-time job or whatever. So I would much rather have the slow and steady. I'm not a stock guy, but maybe Brad would chime in and be like, yes, that's good financial advice too, Tim.
That's right. That's right. No, I'll add to that. And I think that embracing the journey of starting small is definitely something that I will not take for granted, because like there's people that have been following me from day one, or even just like in the first 6 months of my channel, that still follow me to this day. And I recognize them every time they come on. I know how many kids they have. I know what they do for a living. And like being able to connect with people like that is just everything. And when you start to just blow up and you can't possibly know everybody's names, it does make it a little bit more overwhelming. But having that slow gradual growth kind of lets you get to know people a bit more, and it just creates that community that, you know, people just aren't going to leave because you guys have gotten so close.
Yeah.
Hey,
If you
Tim, can I
guys,
add
oh,
one thing real quick to that?
mhm.
Because we disagree about a lot, Brad and me. So I'll say that, like, what I've noticed as an outsider, sort of watching him, was one thing was Brad made a shift around that time we spoke about, where his target audience got clearer and his value proposition got clearer, because he was teaching penny stocks and he made a shift to stock news. And so for me, when I was watching, I felt like the moment he got into that, he was way more passionate. He was way more excited. And even in his research, and that came off through his in his videos. So I would agree that thumbnails got better, titles got better, but I guess part of it is it's not going to be one thing. It's not going to be one magic bullet, but all of that kind of came together. And fortunately, it was at the same time.
Yeah, that's
Love you,
great.
Brad.
Fanboy in the chat says, thanks, Tim. It really is like the stand-up comics 10,000 hours. And I think that's more closely, yeah, to what we're talking about. Everyone loves the overnight success, but it's not typically sustainable. It usually fizzles out pretty quickly. And what we want is like a long-lasting brand that people remember and will talk about for a while to come, not like, oh, those one-hit wonders. Oh yeah, remember that guy? I forgot about him. Like, that's not what we want. If you guys want to go through Video Labs, the next session is open for registration right now. It actually starts August 20th, although you can register for future ones that happen after that if you'd like. You can go to videocreators.com/videolabs and register for the next one, whether it be with me or be with Lennon or Delana or on our team. All three of us are running these classes now. So we would love to hang out with you for 8 weeks and talk not just about how do you grow your channel, but how do you do that practically with like how the YouTube algorithm works and how do you rank and position your content for homepage and suggested and search traffic. And then once you understand how the algorithm works, so like now how do we craft content that's going to capitalize on the signals the algorithm is looking for? And we do that a lot. We hit a lot of those through learning how to tell more engaging stories that hooks our audience attention, holds their attention, engages them, gets them to take the action we want them to take at the end and keep going and watching more or buying or whatever the case might be for you. And then we spent a few weeks talking about analytics in terms of what are the biggest opportunity, like what are the biggest metrics we should look at and how do we use them to spot opportunities for growth. It's all interactive, all hands-on with me and my team. And we really, really love getting to know creators. I think the thing I love most about it is that it's not just information, although that there is a lot of it, but it's about relationships. And I think that's what I enjoy most is that when it's over, I'm like, no, I hate saying goodbye when this is over. And it's about getting to know each other and having a small group of other creators who you feel like are in your corner supporting you. You guys literally are reviewing each other's channels and offering feedback. You end up with like this written report at the end of here's everything you need to work on your channel based on what everyone else sees. And after they get to know you a little bit, it's just really, really awesome. So if you're interested, we do limit it to only 20 creators each, so we can keep it as hands-on and intimate as possible. You sign up at videocreators.com/videolabs if you're interested in joining us. But perhaps more importantly, the links to all of these creators' channels are in the show notes in the description. Please go down, check them out, follow along what they're doing, watch Tetsu go from 200 to 800 to 10,000 here in the next couple days. And Nick's storytelling has been so fun to watch develop, and Melissa's too, as she's taking what's normally very tutorial educational content, and Brad and Jason and Dan, like all of you guys are like taking very educational tutorial content, turning them into stories that's very engaging. Sometimes it's your story, sometimes it's your audience's story, and just seeing how people are connecting that has been so much fun. So go check them out, following their story, and check out videocreators.com/videolabs if you'd like to register for our next session that's coming up here in only a few weeks. So after it's sold out, it's closed. So go check it out now. And I will see you guys again next week for another Video Creators podcast episode. See you guys then.